Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Rank, where I climb the Online Series 10 ladder and provide live commentary as I go. Before I even finish saying what I wanted to say, we are up against a really interesting team with Hitmonlee, G-Darmanitan, the Dedenne, and Indeedee Stakataka Groudon. Okay, definitely one of the most intriguing teams we've seen in a while. And we only went up against Zacian yesterday, which, you know, when you're using Ho-Oh is great, but definitely fun to go up against some brand new restricteds here. So, what do I prioritize? I think, like, Stakataka is probably going to be the main offensive threat. So, I'm thinking, you know, Incin, Ho-Oh, Gastrodon, Among Us are the four here. I'm not going to lock in, but I just, you know, want to think through which Pokemon to bring and which ones not to bring here. If they didn't have Indeedee, Rillaboom makes some more sense to me. I mean, Rillaboom and Urshifu are both really darn good against the Groudon, so it does seem somewhat questionable to keep both of these on the bench. Urshifu could work, but the thing is that, you know, they're Groudon, right? So they'll set up the Sun, effectively making my Water-type damage, you know, significantly reduced. And so it's not really super effective, or I guess it is still super effective, but it's just like not really knocking out Groudon or Stakataka, right? And surely they're going to bring Groudon in this one. Indeedee plus Stack is pretty scary from them as a lead. Okay, I'm down to go with Incineroar and Ho and just see how things start off. But that team has a lot of really cool stuff, so this is always one of those matches where it's like, if we lose, we get to lose to a really cool team and get to see some new strategies, so I'm always okay with that. But yeah, thank you so much as always for watching Road to Rank. If you enjoy, please share support by leaving a like in the video. I'd really appreciate it. And question of the day, I want to know what is the restricted Pokemon that you've had the least success with so far. I think for me, it's definitely, you know, some of the ones that are just a little bit less common. Rayquaza, which we featured a while back, was definitely pretty tough to execute. That team that featured Rayquaza was actually really, really good, but Rayquaza just, like, feels like one of the weaker restricteds in the format. Okay, so it's on Bird and Hitmonlee. They're going to get a special defense boost here, but we get an Intimidate, which is nice. I mean, Hitmonlee does get access to, like, Rock Slide. Honestly, I think the best way to play out this turn one is to... what do I want to do here? I'm thinking switching to Gastrodon. And Brave Bird. I think even with the Intimidate, even if you have Rock Slide, we should survive. Hitmonlee's attack stat isn't just really that good. So by bringing in Gastrodon, then I can pivot out Ho-Oh back out into Incin the next turn. I could also see them just going for a close combat. Indeedee protects. Okay, not expecting that at all, but that's great. And they close combat. Okay, that is, I would say, the dream turn one, actually, because we don't take any damage on Ho-Oh. We get a free knockout onto Hitmonlee, and now we have this Gastrodon, which can potentially just recover all of that damage off. So that was one of those positions where it's like I didn't really feel compelled to target the Indeedee because it wasn't threatening me offensively in the slightest, right? I wouldn't say in the slightest. Expanding Force does an okay amount of damage to Ho-Oh there, but like I have very little incentive to target it just because Hitmonlee is the one applying all the damage pressure at the moment. And so it's one of those positions where I'm basically trying to force my opponent to go for Follow Me, and they didn't go for Follow Me, which we get to punish very heavily. So Dedenne comes in. I truthfully just don't know very much about that Pokemon. And I actually went up against it at the regional championships in Dallas, like the very first Sword and Shield regionals, and it's a similar result where I saw it and I was like, I don't really know what this does, but I'm just going to protect Gastrodon here and then switch Hoa out into Incineroar. We're in a pretty commanding position right now. I do wish that I brought Rillaboom. Like, if we had Rillaboom over the Among Us right now, I'd honestly feel like the game's just over, because then we just have full control with Grassy Glide and Terrain Control. But that's fine. Like, I think Among Us makes sense because I would have gone with Stakataka in their shoes, and we need better answers in a stack. I'd Trick Room. So it's like, if they set up Trick Room, well, yeah, Stakataka outspeeds Among Us under Trick Room, but then we outspeed everything else. So they go for Electro Web. Okay, I mean, neither of these two Pokemon are really doing damage right now to me, right? Indeedee will, actually, with an Expanding Force on a Gastrodon, but I'm fine taking a little bit of damage there. And yeah, we just get a safe switch it into Incineroar, which is perfect. Now the thing to watch out for is, I think I want to recover with Gastrodon and Like, the thing to still watch out for is Follow Me Indeedee with Swords Dance Groudon in the back. That can spiral out of control very quickly. So, honestly, here I'm down to recover and then Parting Shot into Indeedee, so then I can get a Spore off. Yeah, Indeedee protects, that's fine. Means I get a recover off with Gastrodon. Entrainment. Okay, but they targeted their own Indeedee. Alright, that one definitely confuses me a little bit. I guess we'll take it. I am down to just Earth Power now. Actually, Icy Wind's better, just to slow down that Groudon in case it switches in. And I think just Darkest Lair into Indeedee here is fine. I'm pretty confused about the entrainment strategy, so if someone's seen this before or knows what like the main strat around it is here, I would love to know. But yeah, my opponent just doesn't really have any damage right now. Dedenne is just not exactly the strongest Pokemon. Like, you're gonna generally use it for support, but once again, yeah, it's been so long since I've seen this Pokemon. Like, we featured it a little bit in the beginning of Sword and Shield, but it's been a while. Okay, so Dedenne switches out, that's fine. Groudon should come in now, yep. But that's pretty good, right? Because we'll get an Icy Wind speed drop on it. I'll also potentially knock out Indeedee. I assume it's bulky enough to take this, but it's fine. And now we just want to, cycle in the Incineroar further on. And they just go for Follow Me. Okay, so the idea here was to just get Groudon in safely, but it's fine by me. Icy Wind connects, which is very nice. Getting a single speed drop on Groudon gives me more confidence in this late game. And that is a significant amount of damage as well. Now, this Gastrodon actually has pretty decent special attack investments, so it's not, like, super shocking, but absolutely love to see that. Because now the Groudon honestly might be in Sacred Fire KO range, and we get the KO into Indeedee. Perfect. Yeah. I think this is just a classic example of my opponent not having that much offense, right? Like, the Hitmonlee is cool, but after an Intimidate, you don't really deal that much. Although they made a good play trying to target down the Incineroar there. That's why I wanted to switch out into Gastrodon. And I think if they just went with Follow Me on Indeedee turn 1, I would have been in a significantly worse position. So Dedenne comes back in. Got Amoonguss. I mean, Amoonguss really isn't doing much for me in this game. So, like, I don't mind hard switching out into it. Like I said, I think if I brought Rillaboom in this game, I would have just been over a lot earlier, but that was one of those, team preview decisions that I made consciously because I wanted the Amoonguss to counter the Trick Room stuff potentially, because let's say they go with Stakataka instead of Trick Room, and they have, like, Groudon, Indeedee, Stakataka. Without Amoonguss, it's actually really difficult to deal with that trio, right? So it's like, even though Amoonguss doesn't have that much value in this matchup, it's fine, because the rest of the Pokemon are still really good, and we don't necessarily need Amoonguss to win the game. What the Amoonguss does is cover for another option on my opponent's team that I would otherwise be very, very weak to. Alright, so this is the entrainment stuff. So they won't go for entrainment onto Groudon, giving it plus. And it has Earth Power. This just gets wilder and wilder. What? Okay. I thought for plus to work you needed minus on the field as well, but am I wrong in thinking that? I'm just a little confused right now, more than anything. I gotta look it up after this game. Because, yeah, I honestly am just confused in general. I'm just gonna Icy Wind here and switch Amoonguss back out into Incineroar. Actually, there's no reason to even do that, right? Like, we can just sacrifice Amoonguss here. Yeah, I'll just go for Grass Knot. Just because, like, Amoonguss literally offers us nothing at this point in the game. Our Groudon goes for Protect, but that's fine. Like, once again, where's the damage coming from my opponent at this point in the game, right? So it's Dazzling Gleam, Entrainment. That Dazzle actually did a ton of damage. We don't have much speed investment on these Pokemon, so even after all these Icy Winds, we're still going to get outsped, but once again, that's fine. Like, I'm just a Ho-Oh waiting room now. I'm just waiting to safely get it in. But, my opponent actually had multiple threats to Ho-Oh, right? Like, potential Rock Slide from him on the Rock-type attacks from Groudon. Dedenne has Electric-type attacks, and Stakataka, so there are actually 4 things that potentially threaten it with damage. 2 turns of Sunlight now. I'm down to Recover and Grass Knot here. With this team, you just always typically want to go for healing when you have a safe opportunity to. Okay. And they have Earth Power again. And they go for Gastrodon. So they'll KO Gastro, but we should get the knockout onto Groudon. I just gotta look up Entrainment and Dedenne, because that is not a strat I actually think I've ever run into before. Which is pretty interesting. But yeah, we just had a standout turn 1. Special Groudon is also interesting. You don't see that frequently. But, that was something that players would occasionally run way back in VGC 2016. You could run it with Eruption, as well. Cool. But now we get Incineroar in for free, and Dedenne just sadly isn't, the best offensive Pokemon. So we can just Flare Blitz here. and go for a Grass Knot. I actually wonder how much Grass Knot does, because it's so light. I'd assume not very much. Protect, Entrainment, Dazzling Gleam. An electric type attack, presumably? Do we miss the 4th attack? We might have actually gone for it already, but I don't remember. Because I've just been trying to process like this Pokemon in general. Sunlight Fades, but yeah, I mean, it just doesn't do any damage here. Like, Indeedee and Dedenne are relatively passive. Hitmonlee in itself is okay, but doesn't do much post-Intimidate. But these Dazzling Gleams are actually pretty strong, which has been impressive. But I think, yeah, that was a crit on Instant, okay? And Clear Blitz should just finish it off here. So yeah, this is my first time ever seeing this strat. Not something I've ever really run into before, and I still am a little bit confused. So I'm going to quickly take a look at, one, what Dedenne's even run on just in general, because it's not a Pokemon we run into very frequently, and then the strategy with Plus specifically as well. So we can pull up Pikalytics and take a quick look at that, because yeah, I am just personally, yeah, anytime you run into a strategy that you haven't really seen before, it's always good to learn so that next time you run into it, you know exactly what's coming your way. Okay, so first of all, with Plus, it's actually if you have Plus or Minus on your ally. So that's pretty cool. First time seeing that, just because that's such a rare ability. You're not really going to run into that in VGC very often. And I have Dedenne pulled up right now, but it's just like not used at all. So it's funny, even if you scroll down on its like most common moves, Nuzzle, Ally Switch, Gleam, Super Fang, Eerie Impulse, Helping Hand, Parabolic Charge, Electro Web, Charm, Volt Switch, like Entrainment is even on that. And so, yeah, and then Plus is at like 25% usage. And this is on console. So if you look at Showdown specifically here, pretty similar story. Nuzzle, Electro Web, Volt Switch, Ally Switch, Super Fang, Protect, Parabolic Charge, Helping Hand, Eerie Impulse, Charm, Sub, Discharge, Tearful Look. Like, Entrainment's not even on this. So, yeah, I've never run into that before. That's really interesting. But honestly, like, Groudon's damage output was still really underwhelming even after getting the, Entrainment stuff set up. So, I feel like, Cherim plus Physical Groudon kind of has a similar function and just takes advantage of Groudon's, immense attack stat. But Earth Power is a little bit more consistent because it can't miss, whereas obviously Precipice Blades can miss. So yeah, this is one of those times where you just run into something super, super obscure that like you've just never seen before. I've never seen before, I should say. And it's cool. It's definitely not something I expected, and strats like that can often have a big kind of mental advantage because your opponents just have no idea what's coming their way. And I certainly didn't. I never would have seen Entrainment plus the Plus coming out specifically. So yeah, super interesting strat. But I feel like we generally just had a favorable matchup, and then yeah, Groudon's damage output was still pretty like subpar even after the Entrainment stuff went off. So this is like a lot of setup to not get that much damage off, which makes it, harder to execute basically and harder to like win the game even after you get the Entrainment off. But yeah, that was really cool. So kudos to my opponent for a very unique strategy there. All right, getting into things here, and I think this is the same player we played a couple of days ago. Was it the same? There was that one game in which Incineroar got one-shot by a Focus Blast from Reuniclus. I want to say this is the same opponent, but I honestly don't 100% remember. Okay. Who do I go with here? We are min speed with the Mungus, which is generally good. Instant has Parting Shot / Darkest Lariat. This matchup's weird because all of our Pokemon are like decent, right? Like, I could go Instant Ho-Oh. I just expect them to go Reuniclus Indeedee or Calyrex Indeedee. Probably Reuniclus or Stakataka Indeedee. All of those work actually. I probably have to drop Urshifu just because it gets one shot really easily under Trick Room. So I'm thinking Indeedee, Ho-Oh, Gastron, and Amoonguss. It seems like a bad mistake to not bring Rillaboom, but the thing is, Rillaboom's only valuable against Reuniclus plus Indeedee, and like we can probably knock one of those two out immediately in the start of the game. And then like I just think Gastron and Amoonguss have so much more late game value for us, especially Gastrodon for like the Stakataka and the Torkoal, since most Torkoals don't really carry like Solar Beam these days. So yeah, but Reuniclus is really powerful with that Life Orb Focus Blast, so that's something we'll want to watch out for here. What do I want to do on turn one? I want to... Well, first, let's see. I mean, they're probably going to lead Indeedee plus a Trick Room user. Okay, they go with Indeedee Calyrex, which I actually think is more favorable for us, although it means that Reuniclus is a little bit scarier as like a late game sweeper, right? But Like, I can just go for... would I even want a Sacred Fire Calyrex here? Calyrex could protect. It's just that you're at -1. You just really don't deal much damage here. So the play I'm leaning towards is honestly just going for... I do want a Parting Shot. Like, I think I'm down to Parting Shot the Calyrex slot and Sacred Fire it. If Indeedee goes for Follow Me, both of those get redirected. Calyrex is still at -1, and then I can bring in Instant for to bring Calyrex to -2. Yeah, they go for the safe Follow Me, but that's fine. I want to not basically give them a free switch in on the first turn Trick Room, so I'll gladly take this turn. Okay, great. We don't knock out Indeedee. We get a burn, which... Do I want that? Probably not, because now I can't Spore it with the Mungus. But that's okay. I mean, this is a pretty solid turn 1, I would argue. Like... Honestly, I'm still down to go into a Mungus, because I can just Pollen Puff Indeedee next turn. Or honestly, probably just switch a Mungus back out into Incineroar to get Calyrex down to -2. So Trick Room goes up, but that's fine. Now I don't have Protect on a Mungus, right? Otherwise, we'd have pretty good incentive to protect. It's just that we have a pretty free, like, Pollen Puff into Sacred Fire here. They're at -1. I'm honestly not opposed to that idea here. What's the alternative? Switch out back into Incineroar. And then Sacred Fire. But then the thing is, I'll give my opponent a free switch in. And, like, if, let's say we get a burn onto Calyrex right now, it just puts us in such a phenomenal position. So, yeah, I'm down to Pollen Puff and Sacred Fire here. Yep, just go for... I guess the risk here is if Pollen Puff doesn't KO Indeedee, actually. Maybe I should have calculated that a little bit better, because there's a good chance it survives this. Okay, nice, we get the knockout. That was a little bit risky, though. Like, in my head, I just thought it was a guaranteed KO there, so I'm not sure I actually love the play that I made in retrospect, but we'll take it. Obviously, I risk activating a weakness policy here, but I think I'm willing to go for that in this position. Yeah, let's see if we do activate a policy or not. Great damage on Calyrex, obviously. And we get the burn. Yeah, that's the beauty of Sacred Fire. Sacred Fire is just such a good move, because not only do you deal that much damage, but you also have such a good burn chance, right? It almost feels better than Will-O-Wisp often, because you're dealing so much damage as well, and it feels like the burn comes out just as frequently. Bring out Torkoal. Okay. Obviously, that turn played out exactly how we wanted it to, right? And getting the burn, like... Now, theoretically, should put us in a position to just straight up win the game. So, here, I think I'm going to pivot a Mungus out into Incineroar, get that Regenerator. This is a fairly obvious switch, so maybe they read into it. But even if they do, it's fine, I think. Because I don't want to give Calyrex an attack boost from Glacial Lance here. Actually, you can't really get an attack boost, right? I mean, like, you can, but Torkoal would have to not target a Mungus here. And I could see my opponent starting to make desperation plays. Yeah, I mean, getting Regenerator is pretty valuable for us here, though. So, okay, I'll switch out and Protect. I think it's fine. Even if they read into it, things are still okay. Especially with Calyrex basically on a timer now with the burn. You take so much chip damage. Not so much. A fair amount of chip damage every turn. And Gastron's going to be very good offensively. The main question I have here is, did they bring Reuniclus? Because Reuniclus would have been very good here if... Oh, I mean, even if they did, though, I guess you have to bring Torkoal out first. Because, like, Reuniclus will get outsped there. Okay, so they just go for Eruption. The big question here is, did Calyrex, like, target the Instant and go for, like, a high horsepower rather than a Glacial Lance in this position? Yeah, they just go for Lance. Okay, good. So I think now we'll probably want to switch Ho-Oh out for Regenerator, right? That's pretty good for us. Like, I could Parting Shot. Ooh, Instant takes a lot there, actually. No, that's because it was a crit. Okay. That's fine. It happens. How fast are we relative to Calyrex? 81. So Calyrex should outspeed us, which isn't ideal. I mean, it's really late game Ho-Oh that we're playing towards, especially because they kindly set up the Sun for us. I can't Fake Out right now because Psychic Terrain is up. So I think Ho-Oh out into Gastrodon here is fine. And I'll probably sack the Incineroar here then. Like, I'll go for a Flare Blitz here. We probably don't get it off. Actually, Darkest Lariat is better because we don't take recoil and it covers for a Reuniclus switch in. yeah. But the idea here is just to slowly stall out Trick Room, right? Regenerator on Ho is just so good for us right now. And then Gastrodon now is in a pretty good position offensively as well. So it's going to be another Eruption. That's so much damage. Okay, yeah, that's what I was like going to say. That's another crit. They do go for the high horsepower here, but that's fine. I mean, I don't love getting crit twice, right? Because, like, maybe it didn't matter on the Incineroar. Maybe we're in high horsepower KO range anyway there. But I think it's fine, right? Because now I just bring out the Ho-Oh and I double protect, and then Trick Room's over on my opponent's end. And then I can just Brave Bird Calyrex, recover with Gastrodon. So even though the RNG hasn't been amazing the last 2 turns, like, that burn matters way more than the crits that they've gotten. So I honestly really can't complain. So, yeah, let's just double protect here. The main thing here is, like, their redirection user is eliminated, and Gastro's really good against everything else in this late game. So I think double protecting here is totally acceptable. It's so obvious on my end, but I also don't see much reason to not go for it, and they actually stay in with both Pokemon, which is exactly what we want to see, because now this next turn is going to be really hard for my opponent to play, right? Like, I can just Brave Bird Calyrex, recover with Gastrodon, and even protect Calyrex and go for the worst case, which is, I guess, a Yawn. Or I guess Crit Solar Beam on a Gastrodon might be the worst case there. This play would never work, but one interesting thing you can always consider with Calyrex, by the way, when your opponent goes for, like, a double protect like you're expecting, is to self-target and try to knock out your own Pokemon and get a boost. Now, in this game, that's, you know, completely irrelevant, but something to keep in the back of your mind, which is kind of cool. So, yeah, I'm just going to Brave Bird here, and I think I'm just going to recover, mainly because I don't want Gastrodon to get at risk of getting knocked out for the turn. And Torkoal protects perfect. Yeah, it also just punishes a protect there, right? So, like, my opponent's team is so reliant on Trick Room, and once Indeedee goes down, like, you really have to sweep under Trick Room, because if Trick Room gets stalled out, now they're in a position where, like, I can just safely, you know, snipe down a Pokemon one by one, whereas they don't really have much damage pressure onto my end. So, I'd say, like, the one big turn in this game was when I went for that Sacred Fire. Like, you know, the odds of you burning with Sacred Fire are basically a coin flip, but it's actually slightly lower than that, because Sacred Fire can miss. And so I saw it as basically like a quick opportunity to immediately win the game, which is why I took it. It's actually Sirfetch'd as my opponent's last one. Okay. Ooh, that's actually kind of scary. I probably should switch out the Gastrodon here then. And then, I mean, is there... like, I'm just wondering the item on Sirfetch'd. Okay, I'm not a Brave Bird. I didn't switch out. I feel like my opponent doesn't have much damage for Ho-Oh at this point in the game. But Sirfetch'd does get access to Leaf Blade that can crit as well, so we just want to be respectful of that, because Gastrodon's going to win against the Torkoal in the late game. So they don't protect, which is great. Are you Focus Sashed? Nope. Okay, cool. I don't know. I don't think Sash is very common, but you just always have to think about the worst case scenario. And they're going to go for Flamethrower onto Ho-Oh. Yeah, like, I'm actually really surprised they didn't bring Stakataka, because I think that was by far their best and really only reliable answer into Ho-Oh. Actually, they didn't bring either Pokemon that I expected them to in Reuniclus or Stack. Like, if I were my opponent, I probably would have gone Indeedee Reuniclus lead, Stack plus Calyrex or Torkoal in the back. Maybe you don't even bring Calyrex in this one, because it's kind of a nightmare to play with when you're going up against Instant Ho-Oh and Amoonguss. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm just going to recover a Spore here. Gastrodon will win the game at this point by itself, obviously, but yeah. So, that was an interesting one. I think, like, yesterday we went up against a lot of Zacian teams. Today we went up against Groudon and Calyrex-I so far. And, honestly, those are probably the best 3 restricted Pokemon that you can run into. Xerneas is, like, okay, just because Ho-Oh can tank its attacks pretty well, but you also aren't, like, KOing it very easily, especially if they're bulky or have Intimidate on their team, because then, you know, Ho-Oh's damage output just greatly gets reduced. So, Xerneas is an interesting one. Kyogre is obviously really scary for Ho-Oh, but at least there's Gastrodon, Rillaboom, and Amoonguss on the team to deal with it. Calyrex Shadow Rider is really fast-paced. That one probably scares me a lot as well, just because, like, we can't very easily KO it despite it being relatively frail, and then it can also just, like, really blow through the team very, very quickly. So, yeah, like, Zacian, Calyrex, and Groudon are definitely more favorable matchups for us, and so that's definitely, you know, played a big part in being able to win the matches that we have been able to win so far with this team, because when you have the matchup, it's more about like executing them properly. But yeah, I think in this game specifically, Stakataka and Reuniclus would have made my life more difficult. But having Amoonguss on our side helps out a lot, right? Because if we don't have Amoonguss, then we probably just get swept under Trick Room. But Amoonguss makes it a lot more awkward for my opponent to just like safely switch in. Turn 1, like being able to intimidate Calyrex immediately is really good as well. So I'm very glad it wasn't Reuniclus Indeedee. And yeah, the Calyrex, honestly, like, I think it would have been scarier if it were Reuniclus. But, of course, we did get a lucky burn as well, which made the game a lot easier for us to play. If we don't get the burn there, things can definitely be a little bit more awkward. They'd be at +1, essentially, so I'd be able to bring Instant back in for an Intimidate to get it to neutral, but then maybe Calyrex can snowball under Trick Room. That could be pretty scary. So, definitely a favorable turn for us there. Alright, third one of the day, and what do you know? It's another Zacian. I like low-key wonder if there's Rain Dance on Tornadus here, though, because I think it actually synergizes quite nicely with Zacian and Aleki if Aleki has Thunder on this team. And actually, that could be Water Urshifu. I think Rain Dance would actually be so cool here, and I think it actually makes a lot of sense. Okay. What do I want to go with here? It's a classic case where all of our Pokemon, I'd argue, are generally pretty solid. Aleki lead scares me a lot. I like Gastrodon. Do we bring Rillaboom in this one? Like, we need Ho-Oh and Insane, right? It's a Zacian matchup, so those two for sure. Gastro, I think, as well. I don't know who to bring as the fourth one, though. Like, I'm actually leaning towards Amoonguss here because we have the Koba Berry, so getting a Spore off is, like, decently easy. So, I'm actually down to just try Amoonguss and Gastrodon with Ho-Oh and Incineroar on the back. If they didn't have Aleki, I think I always leave the Ho-Oh here, but Aleki scares me enough that I don't feel comfortable with it. I don't love Rillaboom here in a best of 1 for us because we don't know the Urshifu type. Like, if it was Water Urshifu and it gave us a lot of trouble in a game 1, then I'd certainly consider bringing it in subsequent games in a best of 3, but without knowing Urshifu's typing and my opponent's restricted being Zacian, like, Rillaboom just is so weak into Zacian. The only thing we offer is basically a Fake Out onto it for 1 turn. We have no damage pressure onto it. U-turn doesn't necessarily even help out that much against it either. So, yeah. Urshifu and Aleki. Is that Water Urshifu? Nope. Okay, that's not great. I mean, I guess it's fine, but, like, I have a suspicion it might be banded here. Now, this is a great position for Gastrodon, that's for sure. I like Icy Winding into Spore on something. Icy Wind into Spore on Urshifu feels okay, because I feel like there's no way Aleki is going to just stay in an attack. We're going to protect or Volt Switch out, yeah. The problem here is if they are banded Urshifu and you just banded KO the Amoonguss. If Amoonguss survives and gets a Spore off, that's an amazing turn for us, regardless of what comes out here. And they bring out Rillaboom, which naturally makes a lot of sense, but now this means I can pivot Gastro into Ho-Oh this next turn. So, let's see if they're choice banded on Urshifu. It honestly does make a lot of sense on this team composition. Maybe they target Gastro as well, but I feel like that's highly unlikely. Like, you have to respect the Spore. Unless you thought Spore was going into the Aleki slot. Okay, that is definitely choice banded, but Gastrodon actually survives with 5 HP. I get the Icy Wind off, and more importantly, I'm going to get the Spore off onto the Urshifu. So that could have played out so much worse. But Gastrodon hanging on there is so critical. At least I assume that's banded Urshifu if you're doing that much damage. Like, Gastrodon's pretty bulky, but I guess I'm still not 100% sure on that. This next turn is interesting because now my opponent's in a position where it's like, do you actually ever want to switch out the Urshifu? Because if I read into the Urshifu, switch out and Spore something else, you're in a terrible spot, right? So, I suspect it'll stay in here. For that reason, I am willing to pivot Gastrodon out now into the Ho-Oh in the back and then just go for a Grass Knot that's boosted by the Grassy Terrain. It's not going to one-shot Urshifu, but I don't necessarily need it to right now. So, if I were guessing, my opponent was probably expecting me to just, like, Earth Power and or Spore into the Aleki slot, and that's exactly why I didn't want to do it, just because I feel like Aleki couldn't really do very much in that position. Yep, so Urshifu stays in, which is smart. I think if they switch out there, I can punish that really heavily. It's going to be Knockoff. That was really good damage, wow. But that's okay. Goggles isn't really relevant in this game, so losing that item doesn't mean much to me. This next turn is so big because if Urshifu just stays asleep for one more turn, like, I have a 2/3 chance to basically, I wouldn't say immediately win the game, but come out of the turn huge. Right? Because what I could do very easily right now is You know what, actually? We have a speed drop on this. So it's actually always safe to Sacred Fire Urshifu and Pollen Puff into Ho-Oh. Yeah, I'm down to play it safe here. I don't want to take a risk that they wake up. Okay, Rillaboom switches out. I could have Spored there. That's the thing, right? I wanted to Grass Knot Urshifu and Sacred Fire the Rillaboom. But if Urshifu wakes up there and one-shots Amoonguss, like, I don't feel like that trade's actually worth it for us. Because this Amoonguss is so good against my opponent's team. And the main offense that they have against it is going to be, well, half of it is going to be Choice Band Urshifu. The other half is, of course, going to be the Zacian in the back. But the thing is, now we're in a position where I can just switch out Ho-Oh into Incineroar. So, I don't know. That last turn, I think, is interesting. You could definitely go for that Sacred Fire play like I was talking about. But if Urshifu wakes up there and just knocks out Amoonguss while you get a Lecky in safely, I really don't like the position that puts us in. So, like, I'm fine with how this played out, right? Now the question is the attack on Zacian. Are you Substitute? Because obviously me switching an Incineroar here is pretty easy to make, right? Okay, I'm going to go into Incineroar here. I will Spore the Zacian because I want to scout out for sub. If you have sub, so be it. It's fine. Because I can just Parting Shot you the subsequent turn. The thing is, my opponent, like, with the play that they made last turn, if we eliminated Lecky, it's like suddenly the Ho-Oh actually just walls the team completely in the end game. So, like, the odds were in our favor for us for Urshifu to stay asleep there, but I just wanted Amoonguss around for this end game. I go for T-Bolt. Perfect. No sub. Okay, beautiful. That should secure the game up for us, I think, because at this point, unless you crit Blade here. Okay, beautiful. Yeah, and the reason for that is because at this point, T-Bolt from a Lecky isn't KOing the Incineroar, so I have a free Flare Blitz into the Zacian slot, which is absolutely huge. And I can just pivot Amoonguss out, too. I don't even think Amoonguss faints here, to be honest. Yeah, I'm honestly down to Flare Blitz and Grass Knot Zacian this turn, because they have a guaranteed turn to sleep right now. If you switch out into Rillaboom, we just KO that. If you stay in with Zacian, I honestly think we might KO here as well. The only issue is dealing with the potential Critter Para. Okay, so they are going to withdraw Zacian, which actually I'm more than okay with, because once Zacian is out of the way, that paves the path for Gastrodon in the end game. I like the Volt Switch play there, though. I think that's a clever way to get Zacian out and reset it. But this is why I was like, oh, as soon as Urshifu goes down, Urshifu itself actually wasn't even a resist to fire to begin with, but it was a problem for us to deal with offensively, at least, right? So now, if we knock out the Rillaboom, then Gastrodon can come in safely, and then I can double switch potentially next turn. They did a great job conserving the Lecky in this game, though, right? Wow, that actually just one-shots. Nice. Good job, Incineroar. Okay, so we take a lot of recoil, that's fine. I could have gone from Pollen Puff this turn, but I do not regret going for Grass Knot here. Like, that double up play covered for basically anything my opponent could have done, right? So, I think it's fine. Here's the other really cool thing. Right now, the Lecky cannot touch the Gastrodon at all. Which is awesome for us. Terrain disappears, that's fine. Meaning that I can pivot Incineroar out into Gastrodon right now, and then potentially Pollen Puff? We could still potentially lose this, by the way, because my opponent has, like, the two strongest Pokemon on their team fully healthy, and I've taken a lot of damage across the board on my Pokemon. But the play I'm leaning towards here is going into Gastrodon. The question is whether or not I want to just... I lean towards just Sporing Regieleki here. But the thing is, we need to assume a one-turn wake-up right now. They haven't taken any turns of sleep on Zacian, which is at least good. Like, if you protect a Lecky, can I just Flare Blitz? You would lose the game? Yeah, they T-Ball. Okay, perfect. That should secure the game up for us then, I think. Because... oh, not necessarily. Okay, I feel like there's got to be a path to 100% victory right now, right? What is it, though? Earth Power Lecky and Rage Powder this turn works? And if Lecky isn't Focus Sashed, I think it will be Sashed on this in this case, though. I mean, they're going to need a lot of wake-ups here to win the game. I also could Icy Wind, but I don't think that has that much value. Okay, I'm down for Earth Power Rage Powder this turn. Things get dicey going into the next turn, though. Lucky stays asleep. That's its guaranteed first turn. Zacian does wake up. The reason I'm hyper-focusing on Alecki here, by the way, is because if Alecki faints, then we just win the game with Ho-Oh against Zacian. Like, I guess Zacian could have Wild Charge. We did run into that yesterday, but should be a Sacred Fire away from getting KO'd. So let's see if they're Focus Sash Alecki here or not. Okay, they are. I get Instant out now. Oh, boy. So your play is definitely to try to wake up with Alecki and Protect, right? And my play is to just fake out Zacian, Earth Power Alecki. But let's say Alecki actually manages to wake up and protects. They could also just T-Bolt here. I don't know if they need to protect, right? I also could fake out Recover here. They were Sash, but I think you should always assume Sash. I don't think Earth Power was KOing Zacian earlier, which is why I didn't target it there. Okay. I'm gonna go for fake out Earth Power here, but yeah, like I said, if they get a double, or sorry, if they get another one-turn wake here with Alecki as well, that could be really bad. Oh, but they go for T-Ball. Okay, nice. Yeah, that was the other thing. They had to go for Protect there, but they have to find that play, right? And now, given that, we should just KO Alecki and then just it's Ho-Oh and Gastrodon in this endgame. That's pretty scary, though. Just because I feel like we put ourselves in a really good position, but then, yeah, like, the thing with sleep is it's so volatile, right? Like I said, you always want to assume the worst case, which is a one-turn sleep. So, the main thing here is that my opponent can serve the Alecki really well. But Amoonguss was just so good, right? That's exactly why I needed to preserve it earlier. Because, like, the odds of your opponent getting a one-turn sleep aren't exactly super slim, right? And they managed to wake up pretty quickly with both of these Pokemon, so, yeah. Here, I don't mind going for Recover, because it does punish his Zacian, Protect, or Sub. And just Sacred Fire. They're intimidated, so they're at neutral now. So there's, even if you have Wild Charge, you're not one-shotting Ho-Oh. So you would need a Wild Charge crit or a Sacred Fire miss. And they just go for Sacred Sword. Okay. That's fine by me. So Gastrodon goes down. Thank you, Gastro. We get Sacred Fire off. And that's a KO. Beautiful. Yeah, we've run into, like, I honestly want to play anything else other than Zacian, Groudon, and Calyrex right now, or Calyrex-I, I should say, because I think I'm curious to see how those matchups play out, but we've definitely had some favorable RNG today, as well as good matchup fortune, so we'll take it. But yeah, I do want to play one last one, so let's look for one final game here. Alright, last one of the day, and Calyrex Shadow Rider. Cool, so I got my wish. And I think this is a pretty tough matchup, honestly, but you're not always going to have good matchups, and we just had 3 favorable matchups in a row. So, yeah, I am excited to try to maneuver and, play around this. Thundurus-T is really cool as well. That's a Pokemon that actually shot up in usage, it feels like, towards the end of series. Or, sorry, not the end of the last ranked season. Or I guess I shouldn't say shot up on usage, but I saw it on a bunch of, like, top 50 ranked teams, which was really cool. This is really interesting, because Thundurus makes Ho-Oh's life a lot more difficult. Mienshao's naturally tough as well. I don't know. I really don't know. And they have Indeedee, so, like, I feel like I can't bring Amoonguss at all. Oof. But we don't have any good... Oh, I was going to say we have Speed Control, but it's Icy Wind from Gastrodon. It's not exactly the most reliable. I mean, I'm really nervous about leading Instant and just facing up against Mienshao. So, I am going to go with Rillaboom, Ho-Oh, Incineroar, Urshifu. Now, the problem is that I have very few Ghost Resists. Instant is a Ghost Resist, but the thing is, like, Calyrex having Unnerve also means that Instant can very easily get 2-shot here. But part of the reason why Mienshao Calyrex is so strong is because, like, what is Calyrex not like going up against? Well, Dark-type Pokemon, like Incineroar. What's really good against Dark-type Pokemon? Mienshao. Especially Incineroar, because he can't even, flinch it. They go with Mienshao Thundurus, okay. How much do I like or dislike this? Probably not very much. We should assume Calyrex in the back, obviously. Okay, the goal should be to eliminate Mienshao, right? Because if we KO Mienshao, at least that paves the way for Incineroar, right? So, turn 1. Mienshao is pretty much always Focus Sash, so I'm going to go for Sacred Fire because it's some chance of getting a KO, right? Rather than no oh, actually, never mind. If we Brave Bird, we can just Glide it the next turn, but I think we'll probably trade Fake Outs here on turn 1. You know what's another really interesting play? Protect Ho-Oh, and Glide Mienshao, but that just feels a little risky to me. Okay. Yeah, I'll just go for the safe Fake Out Brave Bird play turn 1. I think Mienshao probably just clicks Fake Out into Ho-Oh. Is that Indeedee coming in? Oh. Okay, that's interesting. I like that, though. I mean, it blocks my Fake Out. So maybe I needed to go for another play just to respect this. Because Mienshao is not going for... Okay, they're just close combating. I think that's a really good play by them. Because they recognize that Rillaboom often has knockoff and Assault Vest. And if I do in that position... Yeah, what I didn't account for... Like, this play would have worked out if, you know, they don't have Indeedee as a switch-in. But like I said, Mienshao is pretty much always Focus Sash. So my initial thought to go for the Sacred Fire would have been better there because we get a knockout. Well, if we get a knockout, actually, you just get Calyrex in, and then I'm not even sure that's good for us. Okay, so Indeedee comes out. I don't really have a safe switch out right now. And honestly, I think we just give up Urshifu. Like, I think that's the Pokemon to sacrifice. So I will Sacred Fire here, switch out, mainly because Sacred Fire, like, I don't think Brave Bird's KOing the Indeedee in this position anyway. So Sacred Fire at least gives me a burn chance onto it. Although, honestly, like, Sacred Fire plus 1 turn of burn still does less than Brave Birds. I don't even know if that's worth it. Anyway, great play by them on turn 1. They just go for knockoff here onto Ho-Oh. Oh, and Expanding Force? Well done, if so. They played this really well. Yep. Like, using Indeedee offensively here is so smart as well. Well done, well done. Now, the one upside is that I have eliminated the Mienshao, so that paves the way for Incineroar, but I lost a lot of resources to get that. I can't even in good faith bring out Rillaboom, right? I have to bring an Instant and then switch Ho out into Rillaboom this next turn while going for a Darkest Lariat. The Thundurus lead was so smart. Yeah, and honestly, just, like, didn't respect the Indeedee switching enough on turn 1, and so the play I make covers for everything that doesn't have an Indeedee switching involved, but an Indeedee switching is so likely, right? It's just something I didn't really consider on turn 1. So that was really well done. Anyway, I think here... Oh, I could protect this turn with Ho-Oh, actually. Yeah, I think protecting into switching out the next turn is better. Because Instin's in a decent spot right now, but... Like, if you have Helping Hand... on Indeedee, well, you could go for Follow Me, Astral Barrage, and then Helping Hand, Astral Barrage. Yep, I think that's what they're going for. The decision Expanding Force with Indeedee, by the way, super, super smart. Yeah. And this is one of those games where it's like, Ho-Oh's like not even that good into... Oh, I mean, it's not bad. Okay. First of all, that did nothing. It's because they're not Life Orb. Okay. That actually gives us a huge window of opportunity because their damage output into Incineroar right now is very subpar. Whoa, but it's Rocky Helmet. That actually makes a big difference here. Like, I could switch out, but Rillaboom probably just faints to the Astral Barrage anyway. So then Ho-Oh's gained a little bit of HP, but it just faints to Thundurus. So I honestly think we just stay in with Ho-Oh here and we try a double. I also think Calyrex is probably... No, you're not Focus Sashed. You can't be. I was going to say Sash, but Mienshao had it. Okay, we don't get the double, but that's fine. There was no better play to go for, in my opinion, there. The Rocky Helmet actually makes a huge difference here because it's 1/3 of Incineroar's HP after 2 hits. That will actually probably allow my opponent to win. That's really neat. 130 down to 91, so it did... what, 39 damage, but the thing is now you get a special attack boost from Grimmsnarl, and I take Rocky Helmet damage. So 39, they'll be at 1.5x special attack. What HP am I at after? 58. So they probably KO with an Astral Barrage, and like I said, I wouldn't even be surprised they were Focus Sashed here. Yeah, well played. Very, very well played. The thing is, my Urshifu is completely useless in this one, right? Like, my opponent going for the Expanding Force that turn was really, really smart. I didn't really get a heal up with Ho-Oh before, which was also kind of my mistake. So what can I brought over Urshifu, right? I had Gastrodon or Amoonguss? Both of those are really subpar too, to be honest. Okay. Do we have any shot of winning this? It would be for Astral Barrage to somehow miss out on the knockout on Incineroar and Darkest Lariat to KO Calyrex. Actually, it doesn't even matter if you don't KO, right? Because you'll just KO Rillaboom here, so I don't really think we have an out. Oh, Scarf Thundurus-T. That makes sense. The Thundurus-T lead was so smart on turn 1, and like we could have had a much better turn 1 if I actually just clicked like Sacred Fire into Mienshao or Grassy Glide into it, because like the Psychic turn wouldn't be up, so we don't have the priority on it, but it's fine. I don't think I needed to be that scared of Thundurus-T. It just wasn't that strong offensively into Ho-Oh. Like, yeah, you have a super effective T-Ball, but Ho-Oh is also very bulky here. So, yeah. I'm glad to get this loss in, though, right? Because, like, I think, like I said, we've had really favorable matchups, and that Calyrex Shadow Rider team is definitely not a favorable matchup, especially with the inclusion of Thundurus and Mienshao, but I also think my opponent played that really nicely. Like, they didn't get baited into leading Calyrex immediately, and then, yeah, the turn 1 switch out was really good. I needed to punish that a lot heavier, and I didn't, so kudos to them. But, yeah, that was a really fun set of games. I think this is definitely one of the best constructed Ho-Oh teams that I've seen. It's just really consistent and enables Ho-Oh as well as possible. The only interesting thing is that like Safety Goggles wasn't relevant as an item throughout the 7 or 8 games that we played. But it's still really good because it just, hard wins against Amoonguss, especially like Amoonguss Xerneas composition. So you could experiment a little bit with Ho-Oh's item, like giving it a bulky berry, for example, I think could be interesting. But yeah, like there's nothing wrong with Safety Goggles. It's just an observation for the matchups that we went into specifically. But, the Safety Goggles just turns some subpar matchups into specific Pokemon like Amoonguss and Xerneas and drastically improves that. So, yeah. Anyway, thanks so much as always for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Don't forget to answer the question of the day, and I'll see you all soon. All right. Peace.